Sagittarius Sun and Rising. Welcome to your July 2023 Astro Update. It's Rena here, Sun and Sag. Going to give you this forecast. And July is a month where the Sun is dominating in the sign of Cancer. And, the last 10 days of the month, we have the Sun going into Leo, and that is a trine to Sag, a fellow fire sign. So you might see things start to feel more lively, less emotional, more passionate, and more aligned with what Sages are all about. The house that Cancer is for Sag is the 8th house. Now, this is Scorpio's domain. And what this can mean when planets are transiting through the 8th house is that they want to get to the bottom of things. They want, the Sun here makes you embody those qualities of Scorpio. And so that intensity that Scorpio represents on the emotional level is coupled by, you could call it, I don't know if I call being suspicious an emotion. It's a state of being. It's not just skepticism. It's like, I know something's going on. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But the other big influence of the 8th house is the concept of transformation. So we're going to have a new moon here. I'll get to that in a minute. But the Sun being here by itself, and Mercury is also here until the 11th, means that Sag is really focusing on, how you can experience rebirth in your life. And this theme will actually begin when the Sun goes into Cancer at the solstice. I'm recording this a few days before the solstice. So for those listening at the end of June, you will already be getting a taste of this when the Sun goes into that 8th house. And Mercury here makes the mind want to consume or peruse information of a deeper transformational nature. So, Sages might run the gamut. A lot of us are well read, but sometimes we might like our fast food kind of reading. And this is very profound kind of reading that you may be getting involved with. The 8th house, by the way, is also the occult. So the tarot and astrology fit into that category. Also, magical studies and metaphysics in general. So all of these things can be of interest. It's interesting because the Sun hasn't gone there yet, but I just found my copy of Journey of Souls, which is a book about what happens between lifetimes. And I think that is something that falls into that 8th house category. On the 3rd of the month, we have a full moon at 11 degrees of Capricorn. And for Sag, that's the 2nd house of earned income. So full moons can bring something to fruition. So you might see a business that you have started or some kind of money-making endeavor bearing fruit. You might get a raise. You could have maybe a brilliant idea for an income stream. This could be an ending for some people if they're moving on from a certain type of earning that they're doing, or, a certain job or what have you. On the 10th, Mars goes into Virgo. Now, Virgo is another mutable sign. It squares off to Sag. So that square is coming from the 10th house of career. Mars in the 10th is very ambitious, but it's squaring the sun or ascendant from the first. So that can mean that a person feels this sense of tension between um, how they present themselves and, what's happening career-wise. Some people may feel like their image is at odds with their reputation, the way that they are perceived professionally, for instance. And sometimes this can be actually a good thing because Sagittarius tend to be very rebellious. And this may extend to how you dress, If you're Sag rising, for instance, in particular, you may favor very casual clothes, sporty clothes, and you may feel frustrated if you're not taken seriously, but you may feel this sense of recoiling in horror at the thought of having to wear chinos. I'm speaking primarily about men, but this idea of wearing these kind of more work-oriented clothing compared to what you normally wear, because maybe you're in a line of work where you don't have to do it, but you do see how you get, people tend to think certain things about you. So sometimes these um these kinds of hard angles can cause a person to really try to brainstorm a solution of how can I be in alignment with what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, because the 10th house are professional goals. I mean, especially with Mars there, you're chomping at the bit to achieve something. Watch out when Mars is in the 10th when it comes to authority figures, because you may find that you are clashing with people that are in these kinds of positions, and you may feel this sense of pushback, like you can't have that control or that power. And sometimes, Mars is so determined to get its way that becomes aggressive. On the 11th, Mercury goes into Leo, so that's harmonious. And for Sag, this is the 9th house that Sag rules. So we have these personal planets now beginning to go into that 9th house. Actually, Venus and Mars have been there. Now, here is an important thing to think about. I'm going to talk about Venus because we are going to have Venus retrograde in July. And well, let me get to that when I get to that particular retrograde. I'll just talk about Mercury in Leo in the 9th. For some of you, if you are traveling, it could be like you getting your paperwork together. Some of you may be enrolling in college, or there's some kind of paperwork that you need. Maybe you need to get some kind of reference from a professor, or whatever you call those, letter of recommendation. You have to you have to get your school records or something. Mercury can also have to do with communication, like writing. So 9th house is the house of publishing. So there could be something along those lines. On the 17th, that's when we have that new moon at almost 25 degrees of Cancer. This is in that 8th house. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes. And remember that there was a full moon in Sag in early June. So that could have been the ending of some aspect of yourself. And now you're emerging new and improved. And of course, it's a work in progress, but just saying it like, maybe the last 6 weeks have kind of made you have to transition somehow in your life in some way, and that has led you to reinvent yourself. On the 22nd, the sun goes into Leo, and that is the same day as the Venus retrograde in Leo. So a lot of emphasis on this ninth house. What I was going to say about the Venus retrograde is that Venus has been here for quite a while. I can't remember exactly when Venus entered Leo, sometime in June, I believe. And because, it goes into its shadow period, it starts to slow down even before it goes retrograde. So Venus's usual transit is about 3.5 weeks. So it reminds me of that Mars transit, which stayed in Gemini for 7 months between 2022 and 2023. Well, Venus is going to be in Leo until early October. So that is wild. So this is having to do with this ninth house. This could even be like some kind of like love situation. If you have met someone in the past on your travels, or somebody who's a different ethnicity or race, a foreigner, it could be anything like that. That person, if that person is an ex, they could come back into your life because Venus retrograde can bring people back. But whatever, I mean, it could be just about anything that is different that is occurring, a reoccurring situation. Venus is also about our values, and the ninth house really is about our ethical framework or our philosophical framework. So it can almost be like a check-in, like, do you feel like you're really upholding what you stand for? Because I think that there has been a theme within the collective that has to do with the idea of our personal values and how money plays into it. I remember very clearly during the 80s and during the Wall Street years, in the mid 80s, when Michael Douglas in that movie Wall Street said greed is good and all of that. And, it's interesting. What popped in my mind was the credit card. And, there was an encouragement of, there was encouraging people to use credit cards. And that kind of began this consumer debt situation that was not really, I don't think that was as, made into something positive earlier on. I think that was the 80s that really happened. And throughout the years, people have often believed that, hey, it's a job, whatever it is that I'm doing. But now, as we are being spiritually upgraded, it makes us less inclined to do things that go against our morals, our current, and sometimes people, they begin to develop them later on after they've been doing a certain type of work, and they say, you know what, I don't really think this is in alignment with who I am at this time. And so it's kind of trading off. But there's always that issue of money that plays into it, because Venus is also, because Venus rules that second house of earned income. It always can be like, well, what if I can't make the same amount of money? I mean, I can make a lot of money here. I can have these perks, if you will. And then this idea of like, well, is that the ultimate goal of life? Is that really that important? So anyway, that could be what's going on for you on some level. Um, on a more, if you want to look at it from the spiritual point of view, I do think that revisiting something, if you have written a book and maybe you have been editing it or somehow adding to it, maybe you're dusting it off and giving it a second go. That might be very lucky for you. Remember, this is a house of luck as well. On the 28th, Mercury goes into Virgo, so Mercury goes into that 10th house. So again, I mean, with the Venus retrograding in the 9th and having that with publishing, Mercury in the 10th could be something along writing and career, or you have your mind set on something in terms of your career. Maybe you're researching something about what kind of career that you want, talking to people in positions of authority. And that's what I have for July. So very, very interesting how each month has its own flavor. And I'm sure some of you have noticed that there are certain things that are emphasized. Okay, that's what I have for you, Sag. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, I'm promoting my package deals because they're a great value. They're 2 readings, so they're more comprehensive. An hour of natal chart analysis, an hour of transits for the upcoming 12 months for a special price. I have one similar reading like that with the tarot instead to get like a combination. That's called my whole enchilada. The first one that's a double astrology is called the deep dive reading. And then I have standalone readings too. You can find out more information at the link below. I'm at rainamoonastrology.com. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.